Hey, it's Will here. Welcome to the live stream. On this live stream, we're going to be taking a look at the photos that have been submitted to the Photography Explained Facebook group community, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to be reviewing some of the lovely photos that you guys have been submitting in here. If you are new to these live streams, we're going to do them once a week moving forward. We're going to have some guests on here. I've got some guests lined up, which is pretty cool. And yeah, the way that these work is you submit your photos to the Facebook group. I will throughout the week give you bits of feedback, as will everyone else who's a member of the group. Big shout out to everyone who's posting lots of content on there. It's pretty awesome. And an even bigger shout out to people who are giving feedback on that's really important. And the goal of all of this is to create a bit of a community where we can all grow and improve our photography and get better over time. Right. With that said, let's throw the group on the page and start looking at some of these images. So this is an image from Russell. I know you've been active in the group, Russell. I appreciate it, mate. Cool. Now, are you drowning your baby? Oh, no. Are you drowning your baby to get these bubbles of air? I like the effect. This is obviously in your living room. There's curtains behind it. And these are bubbles that have been blown with some fairy liquid or something like that. Nice. Obviously, the image isn't very sharp. I would get rid of this bubble in the bottom corner. And other than that, yeah, just get the focus right on the baby. And it's a lovely photo. I assume it's your kid. Maybe your kid, maybe not your kid. But the composition, maybe dull the highlights up in this top right-hand corner over here, because my eye goes straight out the frame because it's light out there. So, you've got a vignette at the bottom of the image. Maybe double down on the vignette at the top to keep my eyes focused on the kid's face, and then the two what's called bubbles that are kind of parallel with the kid's eyes, which is awesome. And yeah, that's the only thing I'd do. Get rid of the light, bounce off the bubble in the bottom corner, and vignette at the top of the frame. Nice, excellent, Russell. I think this image is a stronger one than this, but the light in the top corner here works better than the light in the top corner of this here. I'd still put a vignette to just stop my eye going straight out of the frame. But other than that, lovely set of images. I am very sorry. I have no idea how to pronounce your name, sir. But yes, you'd be very glad to receive some feedback about your photo. I would be very glad to give you some feedback on your photo. The issue with this is that there is no story or point to the image. It's a silhouette of two birds on a sky that has looks like there's some haloing around the birds as well. So it looks like you've edited it a little bit. But I, as the viewer, don't get any value from this image, which is the problem here. If the birds were going somewhere, if there was a mountain, if there was a window open on a building on the right-hand side, sure. But you've done the right thing in cropping the image so that there's room on the right-hand side for the birds to move into. But there's no interest. It's just not a very interesting shot. So maybe one to have another crack at, or just crop it slightly differently if this is an image that you really want to work. But again, I'm very sorry, I can't pronounce your name. I'm not even going to try to, but I appreciate you being in part of the group and submitting an image there. Here we have an image from Terry, a photo of the Great River Race a few weeks ago. Okay, so what you've tried to do here is, so we should also bear in mind as well, as we're leaving comments, that we should increase the size of the images. Otherwise, we are cutting half of this image off. And I'm just about to criticize you for it. The first thing is, I'm not sure if it's straight. This bridge looks a bit wonky. It could be the kind of the lens playing tricks on us slightly here. You obviously stood on some kind of bridge or platform, or maybe you're stood on the side of the River Thames here. If you're stood on the side, it would be well worth moving 10 foot to the right to have less of all this dead space in the frame and more of the boats. The composition of the boats is nice. You probably want a little bit more room at the bottom of the shot down there, but it's this dead space here and the dead space in the top right-hand corner that kind of kills the photo. It turns it more into a snapshot than a photo. You might even be better just cropping. If the boats are the interest and this composition of the boats swiping round to the right is the shape, you might be better just cropping this and just doing a photo with the boats. Let's do just that as a quick demo. and see how we're looking. I think your white balance is off slightly here as well. So if I just open this up in Photoshop, and there's probably, I know the Thames is what am I doing? I want to crop. There's probably an image there, maybe with a little bit of generative expand. But that to me, fine. Something like that might be, I know we're kind of pushing the edges to get something out of this image here, but something more like that is probably more interesting to me. I mean, I think the white balance and stuff is way off, but if you look at the white of these oars, and the other thing, and this is Stuart McGlennon, my photography coach, who showed me this, but not every time, but often you've got these three elements of the histogram up the top here. If you pull them closer together, see we're a lot more closer to white here. Still some odd colors going on, but that's probably a lot more accurate to the image itself. Again, not the greatest image of all time. I just wanted to demonstrate that that's probably that potentially with smoother water I feel is a stronger image than when you're trying to cram everything into the frame. And we're back with an image that looks a little bit like this. You don't need to include everything. There's plenty of landscape shots that I've taken over the years, the past couple of years or so, that I've been doing landscape photography seriously, where there's been something epic going on, but it doesn't quite fit the image. And so it's better to cut it out and get the best possible image that you can, as opposed to trying to include everything, which then potentially kind of downgrades the overall image as it is. Cool. Next image, we have Indra. So I assume this is set up in a studio, perfect lighting, class image, obviously. I don't really know all that much about this portrait as a still life. I like the wonky glasses, slightly one eye open more than the other, like he's slightly drunk. There's smoke in the background. Maybe it's maybe there's something else that's been smoked in the background. The only thing that distracts me is I'm not sure it's level. See this line coming down here. Maybe we can straighten the image up slightly. And the thing that's slightly distracting to me is this cup being out of focus and his arm as well. Maybe I would sacrifice a little bit of background blur to have the subject more in focus. But yeah, class photo. I assume this is set up in a studio. You've got different colored lights. You've got a warmer light on the front of this gentleman and a cooler light on the front. The white balance is off, but I assume this is it's been done for effect to warm up the image, as opposed to a mistake or something that's been missed. But yeah, lovely image. Cool. Edward, what are your notes on this? I would really appreciate any feedback on this. I was shooting on a tripod with my Canon R5 1.8. I think this image is too dark. A lady could suddenly come. So her being out of focus is fine because we're looking at the viewpoint of the lady. So her being out of focus is fine with me. Leading lines, again, might be slightly wonky. I think from a perspective, and you got to be careful with shots like this because the perspective isn't always perfect with regards to the actual building itself. But it looks like if you could have just stood. Obviously, we're talking about perfect world here, obviously. But if you could have just stood another meter to the right here, this part of the building would have aligned with the center of it, and she would have been closer to the center of the frame. But I think the problem here for me is just slightly too dark. I'll try and brighten it up in Photoshop, but I'm not. I don't feel like there's. If you got the raw image, obviously you'll be able to have a good crack at this. But I'm not feeling confident. It looks like some of these blacks are actually black. Oh no, there's a bit of room here. So if we increase the shadows just slightly, obviously you can see we're getting banding and all kinds of effects pretty quickly. But that to me perhaps reduce some of the blue in this. Yeah, obviously we're working on a JPEG, so you can do a better job at your end. But these lights are going to be, it's obviously dark, but these lights are going to be a more white or yellow in tone. But I just want to see a little bit more, basically. You can also potentially pull out these spotlights a little bit with a little bit of negative dehaze with the raw image, just to make some more bold shapes in the sky here. But yeah, the main thing is can't see nothing. So yeah, so that's the only changes I'd make. But otherwise, it's a cool image. I like it. It's a nice image. Right, what do we have next? Next up, we have Marcel with some, from the look of things, some beautiful. There's not much you can critique there, right? Beautiful minimalist photos. Vignette around the outside. Maybe it could be bolder without the vignette. Maybe more like a kind of like a poster effect. Not fussed on this one. Bit obvious. There's a gazillion planes all over the place. So this is class. Maybe I'd be adjusting the white balance. Obviously, that's a stylistic choice in an image like this, but I might want to make that feather white. This one, not so fussed about. This is lovely. Again, not sure where you live, Marcel, but you don't have many clouds. But this is class. I love that. Just a little reflection of the, what is it, seagull, as it's just about to go and steal someone's chips. Yep, those two are the strongest. This one, not fussed. This is in the middle. Fine, I could take it or leave this one. This could almost do with a cool, interesting crop of just a real, like 4x1 or something, just a big long image, just to emphasize that it's massively up in the sky, as opposed to what you've done here is use the rule of thirds, which is a legitimate way to frame up a photo, but is kind of a bit basic. And I think for an image like this, you could be a bit more interesting with it. But yeah, this picture of the seagull, great. Now, if that wasn't a seagull, if that was something more interesting, then friggin' hell, 10 out of 10. It's a seagull, so it is what it is. But it is a nice shot. Cool. Good work, Marcel. Cool. Next up, we have Mustafa. I always find it interesting how people want to share the gear that they used to take the photo. Because I literally don't care. We've just done a YouTube video today. I've just recorded a YouTube video today and started to use my iPhone with I've not got the filters here, but with a ND filter in front of it. Oh yes, I do. This may or may not be interesting to you guys, but you probably all watch the YouTube channel, so you're going to see a lot more B-roll moving forward. And I've just got this ND filter that clips onto my iPhone, and the footage from the iPhone is just insane. Yeah, it's more noisy than the Sony cameras that I use otherwise, but I'm going to be using the iPhone for all the B-roll moving forward. And so, yeah, I always think it's interesting when people share the camera or the lenses that they're using. Maybe the aperture is interesting or the focal length, but people are just so tribal about the camera gear. Anyway, Mustafa, we sidetracked. The problem with this image is, and we talked about this last week on the live stream, the problem is you've got all this man-made like a ledge and railing here, and then probably some stairs or something on this side and a pole. If you didn't have those elements, and this was almost more of a jungle and a pathway going through the middle, also it's as a light, see the top of the light post there, then this could be really interesting because you've got some cool colors. You've got bits of blues, you've got some reds. My eye certainly gets sucked through to the middle of the frame, and I'm wondering what's going on down there. But with these man-made objects, my interest is immediately like kind of cutting off because it's probably someone's house as opposed to some secret cave or something. You can make up the you can use your imagination if there weren't these man-made objects here. Now, obviously, the man-made objects are there. There's not much we can do about them. We can edit them out in Photoshop if we chose to. But yeah, other than that, the composition's fine. This is quite heavy in the top right-hand corner, so a step to the right to bounce out, step to the left, sorry, to bounce out on this side might have been useful. And then you can't quite tell because you can't see the horizon, but either these 3 trees are all wonky or your horizon's wonky. It's probably the horizon. So yeah, to Marcel gives good feedback here. There's a lot of stuff, but nothing explicit to look at. And I think that is fair feedback. Cool. I appreciate you, Mustafa, for posting it in there. So here we have Leilani. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Leilani, I've seen a bunch of your photos, so I appreciate you posting in here. Immediately, these need to be in focus. So an image like this, you need to focus stack it to get all of the chess pieces in focus. Otherwise, all I can see is the unfocused bit. You've blown the highlights slightly. So I don't know what camera. Oh, Google Pixel 8. Yeah, so on your Pixel 8, you probably want to underexpose the image when you take it. And then if you're going to edit the photo, then you can increase the shadows, the dark side of the image in the editing app that I don't have. I have an iPhone, but I assume your Google phone has kind of inbuilt editing software. So yeah, on an image like this, if you see these kind of getting blown out, just becoming white blobs, then you want to underexpose as you take the image and then try and increase the shadows in post-production. Stu's an active member of the community as well. I appreciate you, Stu, mate. Again, he's right in what he's saying. It's a little bit dark on this side because I come in here with my eye, I see the horse's head. It's too dark on this side for my eye to be interested in going over there. And then I just get to this unfocused part of the, is this the queen of the queen? So yeah, if you're using a Pixel phone, I don't know if it has focus stacking or anything like that. In which case, you'd probably need to use a tripod and have a fiddle around because the problem with using my iPhone, as I was saying earlier on for doing video, for example, is you can't change the iris, you can't change the aperture on the lens. It's a fixed aperture, so I assume it's the same on the Pixel 8. In which case, it's difficult to increase your depth of field. Yeah, so the only other thing I suggest is these two chess pieces are a bit close together, and so it kind of blurs into one. So yeah, Leilani, I would just have a think about a bit more space, but I like the creative elements of it. I suck at this. I'll go out and do some landscape photography, and I'll get a half decent picture, with the right conditions in the right place. But I would probably struggle. But if you challenged me to put 3 chess pieces together to make something interesting, I would probably struggle. Cool. Here we go. Kelly, 5 years in. Good. So not too far off my kind of experience here. I'm an outdoors person. I recently retired, but I'm completely in love with all genres and creators and lots of venues. Will really enjoy this group. Good. This is a class image. The only thing that immediately pulls my eye are this light patch here and this light patch up here. Typically, we want, not always, but we want the subject to have the highest contrast with the outside edges of the image so that we are drawn to the subject. So maybe I'd be wanting to, let's throw it into Photoshop and see if we can have a fiddle with it. But it's a lovely image, lovely composition. There's not much to, I would be happy with an image like that, put it that way. Cool. So if we just go to camera raw, so I'm going to do this obviously very quick. You might want to, you would massage this. Bring down the highlights just slightly, so you can just see, take the edge off, certainly off the greens there. Definitely want to just take the edge off up here. So bring down the highlights. I almost want this up here and here to be dull. I want my focus to, so that's fine at the top now. It's still a bit bright at the top. We've started, so we will finish. So fine. Bring down the highlights just a little bit more. But this is still, the more I look at it, the more I can't unsee. So maybe just even the exposure. Because we'll put a vignette on it in a second as well. Then, again, very roughly here, but is there a gradient that will, So obviously the bird might be brighter, but so you might want to mask out the bird here as opposed to do what I'm doing, which is going to obviously affect the waterfall behind it as well. Maybe something a bit more like that. So it's a bit heavy-handed. That to me is getting there, and then maybe a vignette around the bird and the waterfall, which is the interesting bit, right? I don't really care about the tree. The tree's framing up the rest of the image, so maybe a bit more like that. Increase the overall exposure. Right, so that's what I would be thinking for an image like this. This is this now is in balance with the light that's hitting the rocks over here. So I feel like that now balances out a lot more. But I love the fact that you've used a slow shutter speed to take away what would be the distraction of the waterfall here. That's like super smart. I don't know if in real time I saw this composition, if I would be quick-witted enough to pull that off. But yeah, that's the rough changes that I would make to an image like this. But yeah, lovely image. Good job. So yeah, so it's only subtle. The change is only subtle. If I paste in the original, so this is my version versus the original. We're just reducing the light on these two patches to push the viewer's eye towards the center of the frame here. But compositionally, otherwise, lovely photo. Cool. So jump back into the group. So yeah, Kelly, good bloody work. Nice. Cool. So we've got a couple of people commenting. Russ, can I share that? I'm sure I can share this. Right, I'm going to share a comment, but who knows where this is going or what's happening. So there we go. Hopefully that's not too obnoxious being on the screen. I appreciate the advice. Focus deliberate on the bubbles to pull the eye away from his. I hear what you're saying, pulling the eye away from the kid's face, but the kid's face, inherently a kid's face is going to be more interesting than the bubbles themselves. So yeah, I would have shot it differently, but this is why it is art, and we have our own different opinions on things. Samuel, not an unreasonable point here. Have you got the feed in the group on most recent? That would seem to favor those who post close to the live stream over those against. Yes, I have done that only because there's just so many photos at this moment in time that I need a logical way of getting through them. If I post it, if I set the feed any other way, there'll be photos in there that I covered last week that have still got traction, and we'll be covering the same ones multiple times. But you're not wrong, Samuel. In fact, as you say that, it's almost like a guerrilla marketing tactic to get people to post more when the live stream is on. And we'll see how this live stream does, but probably we're going to be doing this live stream weekly now. If you guys enjoy it, great. If you think it's terrible and you don't show up to it, then fantastic. I'll save an hour each week and we won't do much more of them. Here is again, I'm going to probably butcher your name, Woj. Hey there, didn't know that you streamed. I didn't until this is the second one that we've done. So hopefully it's useful. And yeah, a couple more questions. We'll come back to those in a second. But let's take a look at some more images. Right, David, two similar shots looking to compare and to critique. So something that I never considered when I started the Facebook group and started the channel and all this good stuff. Something that I hadn't considered is how much people like taking photos of flowers. I have zero interest in taking photos of flowers, and so this was kind of news to me. Now, I'm no expert in flower photography whatsoever, but I've got a couple of thoughts for you, David. So the first thing with this image is you've got dark on one side and light on the other. We covered this slightly earlier on. It's not too egregious, but my eye still gets sucked up towards this patch of light in the upper right hand corner. So maybe I'd add a bit of a vignette just to knock that off. The leaves down here are fine because the leaves would be lighter than the shadows that would be behind the flower itself. But this little bit of whatever it is, branch sticking up, or it looks like a bud of another plant, that needs to go. Get rid of that. Get that in Photoshop and get rid of it. The other thing is you've got this bit of the image sharp, which is fine. I think this probably would pop a little bit more if The flower itself was all sharp, so you used a higher f-stop number, small aperture on your lens so that you had larger depth of field, and then you can always blur the background a little bit more in Lightroom if you needed to. This flower also has a lot of color there that is relatively desaturated on my monitor anyway, as I view this. So I would get rid of the lights in the top corner. I would, if I was to shoot it again, I would use a deeper depth of field so that the more of the flower is in focus, and I'll get rid of this little bud at the bottom. Compositionally, you do it on the day, potentially just move it out of the way, hold it as you take your shot, or obviously in post-production, Photoshop will get rid of that pretty simply and easily. This one right here, there's more obvious, not mistakes, because it's in the eye of the beholder, right? I would do things slightly differently. First off, we're looking down at the flower. And if we're going to do that, what we want to do is have the flower towards the top of the frame. So it's, you'd call it like a hero shot if we were doing product photography. When we're looking down at something, it's almost like we're looking down at this thing that we are disgusted at, and then it's looking down at the ground because we seemingly have some kind of authority and it doesn't want to look up at us. So if the flower's looking up and you're looking down, great. If the flower is looking down and it's to the top of the frame, so it's kind of either at eye level or looking down on us, fantastic. You're kind of just in the middle here, which is not ideal. Similarly with the previous photo, I'd just get rid of this branch, twig, whatever it is. But out of the two, this is a much nicer image. So yeah, good job, David. Hopefully that helps. Cool. Matt, I took this on the Saltburn Pier during the summer. Flat steel pillars, created some frames. I think you've missed a trick here. Let me pull this into Photoshop. Let's take a look at this image. I think as it is, it's a snapshot. I think though that you've got something really interesting with this character here, caught perfectly between these frames. I think the image, if you simplify the image, obviously I'm rushing as we do this, but no, too much, because there's just too much distraction. Maybe like something like that. Something like that. Because this now starts to tell a story. Like, is this person... So, yeah. Is this person walking over to this family here? So not the greatest image of all time, but you kind of get my point of where I'm going with this. Is this person walking over to this family? Why is that far away, that kayak, or is this flying away from this family? You probably use a bit of just to get rid of some of the distractions here. Again, street photographers get really arsy about this kind of stuff. I don't care because I'm creating images for myself. But if we get rid of some of these bits, that to me is a stronger image. That's really done a terrible job getting rid of them. That to me is a stronger image than the original. And all we've done is cropped it. So yeah, hopefully that helps. But that's the image I saw immediately when I took a look at the original. The original to me is a bit more of a snapshot. And I like the contrast here between the wood and the sand, but what you want to be doing is telling a story, and here there's just too much stuff going on that is only kind of half interesting. So yeah, hopefully that is interesting, Mike. Cool. Grant, came across this group. I love the idea of getting some helpful feedback. A big part of my joy of photography is for me to strive to improve. Cool. Me too, Grant. This is a lovely image. I just wish you'd have just stepped 2 foot to the left and got, is that the moon or the sun kind of slightly further over? Maybe I suppose there's more branches on. Is that out of focus down here at the bottom of the image? I think this would work best. The leaves are being swept off from right to left by the wind. So maybe we don't even need that in the frame itself. Let's just get this in Photoshop and have a look. Because sometimes less could be more. You've got beautiful gradients in the background behind this tree. Can we not just get rid of this? Get rid of that sucker. Frame this up slightly differently. We'll do a 4x3. Just really emphasize this tree. That to me is probably a stronger image. You could probably play with these colors a little bit as well without going too far. So we've still got that up in there. Get rid of that. I think it's slightly out focus on the bottom of the tree there. And for an image like this, you've got to have bang on focus. Obviously, I'm editing the JPEG here, well, whatever compressed format Facebook uses as opposed to the original format. But that to me is probably a stronger image because the colors are what make it. The colors are what make it more than a tree, but the tree itself is quite interesting inherently. So yeah, that's probably the edit that I would do. Maybe even go stronger. There's potentially a stronger edit here with these colors. It depends how far you want to go on it looking not real rather than real, if you know what I mean. Yeah, cool, lovely image though. That's the kind of thing that does take a level of skill to when you're out wandering about to spot. So yeah, what other people saying here? So Marcel, the moon. I guess it's the moon. That was my thought as well. It's overexposed. I don't find the tree very appealing. Fine. Lilani. Sometimes a simple picture makes a wonderful photo. Absolutely. I think that is spot on. So yeah, we can see the number of comments that this image got. Granted that you're on the right tracks with it. Got cracking image. Good job, mate. Cool. Gary. No comments. You can have a like from me. Yeah, I like this. It's a shame. You've got some weird background out of focus elements there. Maybe this branch is there's something going on there. Maybe I would use Photoshop just to get rid of them because they're distracting to me. I can't see them. I can't unsee them now that I've seen them. You've got some weirdness going on here. I assume, is this on an iPhone and you've used, or a Google phone and you've used the fake background blur? That's the only problem with using the fake background blur on your phone. When it gets it right, it's awesome. When it fails, it's rubbish because you can see the tree here just as big chunks knocked out at the bottom of it. So on your phone screen, this image, rightly so, looks awesome. When you start to inspect it a little bit further, though, you obviously can see where it starts to fall apart. Now, I'd rather take an image like this when I don't have my camera on my phone, even if it ends up being a 7 out of 10, rather than miss the opportunity altogether. But yeah, nice image. Again, similar to some of the feedback on the previous images, if this was a raw image taken on a proper camera and you really wanted to get stuck into it, I'd get rid of this in the bottom right corner, these leaves that have got the brown around the outside of them. It's a little bit distracting. But compositionally, there's kind of a path going through there. I would probably use a brush to lighten that path slightly just to make it a little bit more obvious in an edit. Other than that, Gary, nice. Probably walking the dog and grab your phone and grab the shot image, in which case, good job. Here's Glyn. I'm 75 years old, living in a small town. I usually get a "that's nice." Well, you got more than a "that's nice" here, which is good to see the community getting stuck in. Right. So what you've got to ask yourself is, what is the point of the image? Why as the viewer, not should I give you my time, but why should I invest my time in it? And the story is, woman checks previous pictures on phone, has a sit down because she's probably tired. And so as she does that, dude who doesn't have camera takes out his phone and texts his mate, which is not the most inherently interesting of stories. Now, compositionally, it's nice. Maybe I'd have cut the image so that these lines didn't come in on the side. But I like the fade to darkness at the top, so my eyes stay trapped on this couple on the bench. But yeah, it's nice, but it's a well edited or took snapshot as opposed to a photo that has deep meaning. The video that released yesterday on the channel, what makes great photos great, goes into this in more detail. But this is the difference between a photo that you've taken, Glyn, and the difference between what you've done and potentially a piece of art, in that there would be more story, there'd be more going on. And the only difference is you just capture a different moment of time. Like, you've done everything else right. So yeah, done a good job. Maybe just hang around there for a little bit longer and see if you can catch someone else with a more interesting story getting stuck on there. Cool. So, Philippe, maybe that's how you pronounce your name. That might not be how you pronounce your name. Great conditions. You've got the birds. Without the birds, this kind of dies a death. I would probably want to darken the sky at the top because, again, similar to some of the other photos we looked at today, my eye immediately just gets straight out the top of the image. I like these parallel lines going up it. So yeah, I would just add a linear gradient to the top and darken that bit there. So you've got the juxtaposition of the circle, the lines, and then as you start to look more into the image, you've got the birds, you've got these wind towers, and then you've got the tops of these trees. Yeah, nice image. But yeah, I darken the top of the sky to keep these lines going up throughout the image itself. But yeah, nice one. We have Mumbarak. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Not sure where this is. This looks like the top part of Wembley. But I've no idea. I spend very little time down in London. This is a cool image. Definitely crop off a bunch of the top because there's just nothing going on up there. And I almost feel like the image potentially could just be a crop of whatever the heck this circular thing is here. That's probably the most interesting part of the photo. Now, it's probably less interesting for you if you live here or you see this regularly. But as someone who has never seen this before, I would probably just do a crop of the shape. The shape of this is inherently interesting in and of itself. So that might be the image. I might just zoom in or just crop into that and take that image. But the background's lovely. Looks like there's some shenanigans going on in your editing with these light bits, kind of halos around this element here, but not on the building. A little bit of haloing around there. So yeah, you've got to be careful pushing your edits too far that the halos become obvious. Cool. David, feedback welcome. Please don't like, as that doesn't help me improve. You can have a like. There we go. Too much negative space on this side of the image. Lovely, like crazy sharp though. You've smashed it with regard to your focus. Yeah, I would just crop it, probably a square crop. Let's just do it so it's done. But yeah, I think a square crop on this is probably what we're looking for. And square crops are something that I went on a photography trip to Lofoten in Norway at the beginning of the year, and I never did square crops until when I got back from Lofoten. There was loads of photos that just didn't quite work in any other crop, and so since then I've been doing quite a lot of square crops. And so yeah, I did not share my screen as I did that. There we go. So just a square crop on this. Vignette, no vignette. I quite like the spider webs. It looks like the branches haven't been disturbed in a long time. Colors are nice. Yeah, lovely photo. But yeah, I would just do that crop to get rid of the kind of negative space on the far side of the image. I love the background colors as well. The background colors. We had a photo last week that was similar. The background colors are mirroring the bird itself, which works perfectly. I think some of this is just not luck. I'm sure some of it is by design, but I'm also sure when you're just blowing out the background with a fast aperture lens like that, some of it is just luck of the draw as to where the creature is as well. Let's run through a couple more questions, comments. We have a post from Simon saying, first time here, where's the link to join the group? If you just search on, the link is facebook.com/groups/photography explained. I'll do a post after this live stream ends, so you can join the group. Otherwise, if you download our free cheat sheets from our website, you'll get a link to the group in the email follow up there. But yeah, hopefully that helps. But yeah, definitely jump in if you've got photos you want to share. A couple of comments from Russ. I appreciate you, mate. So similar post that we had, comment that we had earlier on from Gabor. Again, I might be butchering your name. I shouldn't stop apologizing. I was going to say I should stop apologizing for butchering people's names, because the 50th time on the stream that I do it, it probably gets a bit grating. But also, I apologize for butchering your name. How long are you going to review the photos posted in the group? I posted mine 24 hours ago, and I'm afraid you won't review them. Yes, I will find a solution for this. Maybe we do them randomly moving forward, because obviously there's so many posts that I'm never going to get through all of them. And we don't necessarily want everyone posting the 10 minutes before the live stream starts. Otherwise, it's going to be a mess of it's going to be a complete mess of people posting and me not be able to get through them all. So yeah, I will find a solution to that, Gabor. But I appreciate the comment, mate. Cool. So let's jump in. Right. Is that a nipple? Nope. I think nipple has been covered perfectly. We were just about to have our live stream taken down. David, welcome. Feedback, welcome. Studio shots to experiment with the lighting. Nice. Beautiful photo. No comments. The black isn't black. I don't know if that's what you were aiming for, but the black could be blacker. Obviously, that very easily could be a stylistic choice as opposed to anything else. Eugene here is commenting, I've played the lighting to make sure the face is visible unless your purpose to highlight the shoulders. Maybe a tiny bit of fill on this side just to show the eye, so that the eye exists. I don't feel we need to see the lady's hip or feet or anything like that. That's fine. But yeah, maybe I'd like to see the just bottom of the instrument, but more so her face. But if you're going for not creepy is the wrong word, but kind of slightly like a 2% disturbing, then obviously this works fine as well. So that's the only thing I'd consider perhaps a tiny bit of fill there. But I'm certainly no portrait or studio photographer, so take that for what it's worth. Another one for David. I saw this one actually. This to me looks AI to heck. Now, I'm not accusing you of anything here, Stephen. You might be a legitimate photo here. Does anyone else mention this? I like the colours. I'm not sure about the log in the foreground. Fine. Okay, so no one else has mentioned AI here, but the way that these sun rays are just so perfect. The way that this log looks kind of wet. But there's a dust spot up here. So I think it's either, Stephen, respectfully, you've either absolutely butchered the editing here, because I think you've done it on your phone, which is fine. Is what it is. You're trying to edit the photo on your phone. Or it's AI. We've all been tricked. But AI surely wouldn't put a dust spot in the sky of the image. What do you guys think who are in the live chat here, especially on YouTube? Seems to be lots of comments on YouTube. What do you think? AI, no AI? This to me just seems a little bit fishy, but it could very well be that you've edited this on your phone, Stephen, as opposed to anything else. So I will reserve kind of judgment as to roasting you too much. But yeah, that sun's obviously had some shenanigans done to it. So let's review the photo as if it is as if it is legitimate. So first thing is I would crop out a ton of this sky. I would focus the image around the branch here on the kind of the rule of thirds, and I would reduce, maybe do like a 16:9 crop, and I'd reduce a lot of the sky and get rid of it. The sky, there is no value to the sky up here in the dark side of things. These clouds are awesome. It's just a shame that these branches or these logs weren't in front of these clouds, and obviously the sun wasn't close to these clouds as well. Obviously, you could have took a few steps to your left to get those branches in line. But one thing to note, Stephen, is what you typically you don't want things coming straight from the. We can do what you like, but I would avoid having things coming from the very bottom of the frame straight up. Typically, it coming at some kind of angle adds more energy to the scene, sucks people's eyes in, acts more like a leading line versus when you got something coming from the bottom of the frame in parallel, you just go straight to the sun, straight to these clouds, and then I'm wondering what am I supposed to look at next? So yeah, interesting photo. I know there was. If we look at this, there was. Oh, there we go. Member reported. So this image from Ian, 26 comments. A lot of people thought that this was AI. So the live stream takes a turn here, but yeah, I think my thoughts are if you can't explain where this is, it looks a bit odd to me. And I don't think our man Ian has posted back in here as well. So is Edward. Edward Goodman doing some policing here. Likely AI generated this image. Which is this is the future of photography, right? At a glance, this image looks quite legitimate. Now we can see these computers look like these rocks look like they were generated via a computer in like 1995. So it's obvious zooming in slightly, this is absolutely fake, but it's not far off. To me, if the original poster Ian would have turned around and said, "This is in this specific location," right now we would have been on Google Maps taking a look at it, and if it was anywhere near close, at a glance, I would say it looks real. But as you zoom into, as you kind of open the image up, these rocks look terrible. This bush looks terrible. The sunrise looks nice. It's interesting times for us all, especially if you're doing landscape photography. If you're doing studio photography, you're done. If you're doing product photography, the AI tools there, will most the AI tools that are photorealistic enough that someone who has a good eye for composition, who has a good creating an image, good eye for light, they can kind of faff around and create absolutely images that are absolutely good enough to be published via a company or product photos or something like that. For landscapes, for some reason, the AI tools are just not quite there yet. So here we have a post from Edward. Let's have a look. What's he saying? So he's got his settings, he's got his fancy A1. Oh, fancy 600 mm f4 as well. Nice. So the problem with this image to me is that there's too much. I like the juxtaposition of the two ducks. I know nothing about birds, but this probably is a female duck and a male duck, right? So I like the juxtaposition of the male and the female. Are they dating? Do ducks date? Who knows? I think the problem is though that there's too much going on in the bottom third of the image, and the ducks don't really stand out. So nice job. They look relatively in focus. You can't really always tell when these images are uploaded to Facebook. Sometimes the compression on Facebook is perfect and compresses it to a compromise of what Facebook wants, and also as a viewer, they still look razor sharp and the colors are perfect. So good enough from that perspective. But I think the main thing that pulls me out of this image is there's just too much stuff going on the bottom of the frame. You've got this other log layered behind as well. So you certainly don't always have to have the background blown out on images of birds, which is the go thing, the thing that everyone wants to do, right? You whack on a big, what have you got, a 600 mm f4. So I think there's absolutely value in having backgrounds in wildlife photography, so it tells a little bit of a story. It's more of a landscape with an animal in it. I really like images like that. But on this one, it's too symmetrical. It's a bit obvious, and these logs / branches are just a bit too heavy and in focus for me. Yeah, So it's otherwise, if you could just cut these two birds out, the juxtaposition of those two and the shapes are really lovely. So you've captured a lovely moment in time, just in slightly the wrong place. That might be how I would describe it. Here we have Nell beating cancer. Good for this lady. That's a portrait. Again, I'm a landscape photographer, not a portrait photographer. Maybe I'd want to brighten down here just so it matches the background up here a little bit. But lovely smile and good on this lady for kicking cancer's ass. So yeah. Cool. Rue. New to this group, feedback appreciated. Let's take a look at this. It tells a story. Where is this person going? What are they doing? You got lots of, and you always have to have obviously lots of contrast, but there's a level of contrast that keeps my attention. You've got lovely leading lines coming toward this this bloke or this lad. There's another boat there. There's something else going on here. This is slightly distracting on the corner of the frame, but for the love of all things holy, this horizon. I don't know if you, because this could be anywhere in the world, right? This could be 3 minutes away from a really lovely resort where you've just been sipping margaritas for the past 3 hours before you go out to go do some photography. But you can't have wonky horizons like this. That's like the dust spots in our horizons. Stuart McGlennon is my photography coach. You can find him over at lensdistrict.com. He's been featured in a couple of my videos as far on the Photography Explained YouTube channel. But if I ever have a wonky horizon, and we do like a monthly call when he reviews my photos for the month and that side of things, the sheer disappointment that goes through the Zoom call as we're chatting is tangible. And so that's what I feel reviewing you guys' photos on this channel, on this live stream. You've got to get the horizons right. Horizons, dust spots, non-negotiable. Other than that, lovely photo. It's a shame there's just not something slightly more contrast in the sky, maybe. But zoomed out like this, it's nice. And I think if it wasn't the ocean, and so the horizon is just a straight line, you could get away with this kind of Dutch angle effect. But with the straight line, that, you know, if there was a forest, or if this was a river with a forest in the background, stuff like that, you could probably get away with it. But as it is, it can't have a horizon like that. Just completely throws me out of the image. But yeah, lovely image. Cool. Stephen. Hi, folks. I'm new to this group. I wanted to share this abandoned train I found in the summer. There's old fuzzy diesel car. Nice. Bit of a snapshot. Nice colours, though. I like the greens. Highlights are all blown. But yeah, this is definitely a wonky horizon as well. Brain is slightly off. But yeah, nice image, Stephen. Feedback for you is you've got leading lines coming to this black train. You've got the juxtaposition between the two, that depth. So typically, not always, but a lot of time with images like this, we want depth in the image, which you've done lovely. I think you've just blown out the sky. But then this might be a stylistic choice to go a bit more cinematic with the scene. So yeah, I think what you need is a story element to an image like this, which is just lacking. To me, I don't know where this is. I don't know the context of it. It's just two trains and a pile of gravel, respectfully. But yeah, an extra element of story, and this very quickly becomes like a still from you want like a pair of shoes that have just been left on the ground here, or there's a bloody baseball bat, or there's a gun or something more sinister. This then becomes a still from a Hollywood movie. So that's a little bit of feedback for you there. Cool. Ed, Union Station. Slightly kind of creepy and voyeuristic, right? What I like, which is you've not done this with the color grade. The color grading seems a bit flat. Comment from Joel here. What I do like, and this is something that I've learned recently from doing more cinematic work, which you'll see on the Photography Explained YouTube channel moving forward. But I'm trying to do more like cinematic B-roll as opposed to just me opening my bag or something, which adds value to the video probably, but it's a bit boring. Something I've learned from doing more cinematic work, or trying to do more cinematic work, trying to skill that up for myself, is a lot of films will use areas of warm temperature and cold temperature to juxtapose two parts of the scene and to draw attention to specific parts of the scene as well. And this is kind of warmer, this is colder through here, and I like that. You could probably add a vignette to this because it all appears boring and distracting. We don't need our eye drawn up there. There's probably a tighter crop slightly. But yeah, I'm looking at this going, I assume he's on his phone. If he wasn't, problem is in 2025, everyone's on the bloody phones. If he wasn't on his phone and he's reading a book or he's looking at something, or you'd probably throw a stone at this, just a pebble or something at this window to make him like stick his head up. Then this, again, the story behind this image goes up to another level. But as it is, nice kind of shot, nice moment to capture. Cool. Charles, this is my new favorite picture, but the sign kind of the sign does ruin it. You're right. Without the sign, who knows where this random path goes. With the sign, it's obviously some kind of, in the UK would have it. It'd be talking about the historical building that's at the top of the stairs. But yeah, you can easily get rid of that sign if you wanted to in Photoshop or Lightroom. But yeah, it's nice otherwise. There's a lot of compression around this. I don't know if it was taken on your phone. Other than that, yeah, you got leading line here. You got the path going up. At a smaller viewing size on my monitor, this is a better photo. As soon as you blow it up, that sign becomes a little bit more obvious. But yeah, it's a cool scene to have saw in real time and gone, I'm going to capture that, and it tells a story. I think you've done a good job there. Even the position where you've stood where the light is above the steps. If you'd have been too far one way or the other, that would have been out of alignment, and that would have really damaged the photo as well. So yeah, good work, Charles. I like that. Cool. Autumn in St. John's. Newfoundland and Labrador. Is that a place? Is there a place called Labrador? I took a crap at some landscape photography. Been shooting since last winter. Nice. I think again a square crop potential on this. Let's throw it into Photoshop. There's just a little bit too much on the top and a little bit too much on the bottom. So yeah, maybe a square, just a simple square crop like this. We've got a little bit too much on the side there. Trying to get this tree a little bit more aligned. No, that doesn't quite work either. There's definitely a crop there to get rid of some of this top kind of dead space. And maybe we want to keep this at the bottom. But yeah, it's a nice image, lovely colors, obviously a sunrise or a sunset. It's a nice photo. You just, similarly with some of these other photos, you're just missing something of interest here. The cliche thing would be a girl with a red umbrella. And yes, why has the girl got a red umbrella in the sun? Maybe you wouldn't have red. Maybe you'd have blue to juxtapose the warmer tones here. Again, that light, warm, cold kind of contrast. But yeah, it's a nice photo. It's a nice photo. You're just missing a little something. But it's nice. I'd be happy if I took that. Cool. Here we have Benzel taken last year. So colors on this are wonderful. Definitely crop out the sky. We want less of this just green. I struggle with like things like garden photography or photography like this, which is obviously in a managed park. For me personally, it just doesn't quite do it for me. I wonder if there's a crop here where you just crop some of these beautiful colors and it's more of an abstract. So probably these colors up here. So the top of this red looks washed out. I don't know how much editing you've done with this. And there's a little bit of red here. Maybe there's probably a crop there that if there's enough pixels in the image, could be blown up to be a banging picture to be on a wall. Here's David giving some feedback. Beautiful colors. I would have cropped the sky out altogether. Yeah, me too. I think as soon as there's like a managed lawn, so maybe they've got sheep on here or something to manage it, or enough people walk on it and have picnics and stuff that it manages itself, or maybe they use a tractor or something to cut the grass. It just immediately wipes out the not the value of the image, but the epicness potentially of the image. But I reckon a crop up here in that top corner with those colours could be really nice if there's enough megapixels. Cool. Joe, early morning mist fog on Lake Lewis in Yellowstone. The only thing that annoys me here is the boat. If the boat was facing the other direction and it's just potentially going off into the abyss, I'd really like that. But you're not going to turn the boat around for a photo. That would be that'd be crazy. So that is what it is. The same Joe. Okay, Joe. This image is way better than the previous one. Fine. Yeah, I'm being somewhat polite as I say as I go through that. But this image is lovely. The editing probably push the sky slightly darker. It seems a bit. So you've got a little bit of a vignette. I might keep the vignette on the bottom so it doesn't go completely black. But I might increase the vignette on the top or darken the sky off slightly because we want our eyes to come on this leading line and the leading line here that you either exist or you've built it in with some kind of brushing some shadows. We want it to be on the buildings. Because there is no real mountains like this where I am, well, there's the Lake District, which aren't as epic and as tall as these, and the Scotland, which probably are as tall as these, or not where we are. I don't know, Grand Tetons. Maybe they're more epic again than Scotland. But this, to me, because it is so epic and it's not something I see every day, is really lovely. See, I just darken off the sky potentially, just to kind of trap the viewer with the subject is within the frame. That's what I'd be looking at doing. Okay, 7 o'clock. We've been running for an hour. We'll do a couple more and then we'll wrap things up. Cool. Krakow, Poland. Don't like the sun stars on that. The cool part of this image is why is the sky lit up? There must be a crazy light and there must be some cloud. I think the image is probably the shadow in the sky. I know what you've obviously done a long exposure here to get these cars moving across, but that's kind of distracting. I would see if there's a crop here for the shadow against the sky on the top of this image here. That's probably the most interesting part of it. You got the scaffolding and stuff as well, which kind of detracts. It is what it is. You can't ask them to remove the scaffolding. Right. Daniel. Seeking your feels. This is lovely. I would darken off this, whatever this is here at the bottom of the bottom of the bridge struts, what we would call them. I like the lightness up here. So my eye comes in from this branch, hits the lightness on the bricks and goes up here. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's a bit odd. It's a weird perspective. Why would you be down here in the bushes? What sinister things are going on? Joe Ellie has this nailed, and there's a real moodiness in the image. Yeah, I like that. I'd get rid of it. This is just distracting though in the bottom right corner, bottom left hand corner. Sorry. With that, we'll do one more. Nice. This immediately strikes me as a good candidate for cropping. Let's just throw this into Facebook. We'll do this one, then we'll wrap up. The image is just the sky being in the image. I'll just throw this back on the screen. There's too much sky. And the lightness of it as well. The mist and the layers here is like the best bit of this photo. I think we need to go even more extreme, maybe. That to me is now looking like a stronger image. That is a class image. I just use a bit of just clone out some of these bits. So you could still have a wider, a taller crop if you wanted. Obviously, I've done that very quickly. You could do that better, but it's a lovely image. You could probably. Would you want to push the contrast in it though? I feel like the shadows could be a little bit darker. But you're removing a little bit of the mist as you do that. Again, this is now subjective as to how you'd like to see the image, but that I think maybe a slight vignette around it. Again, just to pull my eye away from leaving the top of the frame. So I'm just going to create filter, I'm going to invert it. That might be a bit heavy-handed, but you get the point. That to me is a much stronger photo than if we look at this one. Again, subjective, which is absolutely fine, but my eyes, I'm completely distracted by the top of here versus that. Who's this photo? That's Michael. Class photo, just a slightly different crop here. I'm going to save this. I'm going to post it onto your image so you get that bit of feedback. Because percentage-wise, you're unlikely to be viewing this live stream. But yeah, we'll leave things with that. Hopefully that was useful. Hopefully there's I don't know how entertaining it is to just watch some dude on the internet edit photos and give people criticism. Hopefully some positive feedback as well. But yeah, we'll wrap things up there. I appreciate you tuning in, and if there's interest, we'll do this weekly. This is absolutely an easy thing for me to do. I love talking about photography. I love running through this, and hopefully if there's value for you guys, the audience, we can do this around about this time each week. So with that, I'll speak to you in a little bit. Throw a load more photos in there and through a bunch of them for sure. Cheers, guys.